There we go. Okay. So it's just basically we're just going to do this with a one boolean. All right. We're going to turn on live boolean. This is our head. We're making a cyclops, so we're making one eye. All right. We're going to cut the eye socket out. Okay. Position that eye socket wherever you want. Turn this on to be our starter. Go to Boolean, make Boolean mesh. And it will pop up your new Boolean right here. This is the final mesh. There's nothing, previewy about it. It's just your final mesh. So pinned in your result. And there you go. This is it. Check your topology just to make sure. See, got through. That's it. And that's how you just do a simple Boolean cut, which is really all the eye socket's going to be. It's just a simple Boolean cut. Okay. Does that explain it? Yeah. Okay. It's way simpler than like it seems like it needs to be. You're simply just cutting that piece out. Again, think of it like a mathematical equation. You have your starting sum right here, which is the sphere. You have your subtraction, which is going to be the next piece, and then your result, which you'll append down below. Mark. Not really. No questions. Okay. Hey, I'm fine with that. All right. I want to know when it's necessary to apply a zero mesher, a clay polish, dynamesh, or divide on a model. Okay. Good question. So, zero mesher for me. Well, let's back up. Dynamesh. So dynamesh for me is when I am constructing a model. I got a fairly similar question last week for this. So let's say if I'm constructing a cyclops with like one arm. And the arm is just made out of balls. Okay. I need to basically glue the spheres all together so they're one contiguous mesh. So I'm constructing large features of this mesh. Okay. So this would be something I'd be using Dynamesh for. Dynamesh has to be on one subtool. I'm going to merge down right here. So they're on one subtool. And then I'm going to go to Dynamesh and go ahead and run it. And you'll see how the seams get a little smoother right here. Okay. So that's Dynamesh. When I'm constructing a large project, like a large creature, character, whatever, that's using Dynamesh. Okay. It deletes any intersecting faces. So it's just one contiguous body.
That you selected, or just do it for the whole thing?
No, selected subtool. Yeah. Because otherwise, just merging these together into one subtool, it basically does not actually do any sort of dynameshing. This is all separate pieces because these are different polygroups, and these have not been actually merged together or dynameshed together. But if I go in and try to move again the arm, you'll see that when I move it, they are actually merged together. It's one contiguous piece. Okay. So again, when I'm building the actual character, I'm using Dynamesh to construct it. Think of like when you're slapping clay together, you're pushing it and prodding it, and you're like blending it into the main piece. That's dynameshing in a sense. Okay. Z-remesher, I generally will do that when I have pieces that I know Dynamesh is going to screw up. So Dynamesh is usually going to be a little weird in some of these little thin areas right here. Okay, so you see how it's kind of like poking through and creating little holes. All right, but if I back up, it didn't do that on the baleen. It's pretty even. It's pretty nice. So what you can do is use a Z-remesh, because you do kind of want better topology right here, because like this is fairly, I mean, it's just a straight cut with triangulation at the border. So if you want better topology here, so you can start subdividing to add detail, then you can run a Z-remesh, and that will clean this up. See how it's still keeping that same cut, but the Dynamesh was real like torn up on the edge. This is real clean and pretty smooth. So a Z-remesh will do that. However, a Z-remesh is not going to blend or not going to merge multiple bodies together. See how this is actually not blended together the way the Dynamesh would? These are actually still separate pieces. So if I grab, let's do like a move topological. I can still separate it, because they're not actually like merged together. Well, they're not actually, I should say Dynamesh together. So for me, Z-remeshing, again, is something I use when I need to clean up weak topology or weak geometry in like thin parts that I know are going to cause an issue. And then I will use it when I am done constructing the main body of a character. I'll run a Z-remesh, and then I will start subdividing, which brings me into subdividing. Which again is right here, divide. This just simply quadruples the face count of any subtool that you're working with. That's all it does. So it makes any stroke that you're putting onto a model smoother. So if I go in and take a draw size of that big, you'll see that what's happening is I'm basically just pushing up maybe like one edge loop, two edge loops maybe. If I go up another subdivision level, you'll see that that stroke becomes a bit smoother than the first one. And then if I go in and lower my draw size where my brush is smaller, I'm like barely moving anything, because I'm actually kind of hitting in between vertices. So again, if I quadruple it again, you'll see that I can then have a little bit more of a direct line of effect on the model with having a smaller brush. So it allows me to add more high quality detail. Another example is if I take an alpha here, so this little dots one, and I go to subdivision level 1 and I try to draw it on, you really can't see the alpha. But if we subdivide it, it becomes just a little bit clearer. And then I can go over to here and redraw it. You can see it looks different than it does here than when we subdivide it. That's because, again, we're getting a higher resolution, more essentially faces to work with as we're actually drawing that on there. And then as we go to subdivision level 3, I can get something that actually kind of looks like the alpha. It looks like this little collection of circles. And then that just continues. As you subdivide, you're going to get clearer and clearer detail until you essentially get perfect detail. And again, with the higher resolution, you can carry those details into smaller and smaller regions. So you can get smaller wrinkles on your skin, you can get smaller scales, just smaller details that are again going to be worked to bring that character alive. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. You guys have some good questions today. Does the mesh always need subdivisions before textures are added? Are you talking, Natasha, are you talking in regards to like me doing a poly paint? Or are you talking like me doing like alphas?
Oh, I was talking about the alphas.
Yes. Just in general, yes. And I think this illustrates why. Because if you're going at it with a low resolution model, you're not going to be able to get any of that detail on there. Whereas again, subdividing, you can get all of the detail you would ever want. Does that make sense? Okay. And then if any of you guys are wondering about poly paint, the same answer would be applied, because that's also depends on the resolution of the model itself. I have a drawing of a fly. Ooh. I have a joke. What is a skeleton's favorite snack?
Cornmeal?
That's a really good answer. It's not the answer on here, but that's really good. I like that though, bone meal. That's funny. Spare ribs. Thank you, Isaac. Talia, representing the Avatar state. Teeth of different animation styles, Carlos. What do you mean by teeth of different animation styles?
That sounds very Chris. Have some sort of different teeth, lined or just divided.
Okay. So I think it would honestly be kind of, there's a gray area between sculpting individual teeth, like what we did with the busted character, where I sculpted like each individual tooth and we just like placed it into the gums. That's a much more realistic take on it. And then I think the far other side of that, the other extreme, is going to be that bar that we did for my character, for James. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's kind of two extremes there. I would imagine any of that would fit somewhere in the middle. So like Ren and Stimpy, for example, you know, when they do like their high detail pictures that are like really gross, and then like Stimpy is like smiling, he's got like the really crooked, gross teeth and stuff like that. That would be sculpting individual teeth and then like putting them in there, like you know, making go point in different directions. That would be kind of that animation approach. Something like, do you have an example of something you're thinking of?
Anime, for example.
The only thing I can think of with anime teeth would be like the
Realistic.
bar. Is there anime that has more realistic teeth?
Um,
I think the Rick and Morty have the ones that are indivisible.
I think I know what you're talking about, but let me check. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, honestly, for like a character like Rick, I literally would just make a little, like one rounded tooth. You could even almost be like a half sphere. You just kind of elongate a little bit.
Like adding a sphere.
Yeah, I would honestly just cut like bottom of that sphere off because you're not going to need it.
And then follow throughs, mirror.
No, modify topology mirror, because then you would just place them on one part of the, like one half of the gums, mirror them over, and then that'd be it. Like, it literally would just be, because there's no detail to the teeth on here. So like for this, it would just be just make like one tooth, and you could just make as many of them as you need and just keep duplicating them. And that'd be a tooth right there. And that would be reflective of whatever style you're going for. That would actually show individual teeth. Again, I'm not sure of like any like anime that would do individual teeth. Like Rick and Morty, I don't quantify as anime, but they're animated for sure. Something like Naruto, Inuyasha, like they all have, I think, bars pretty much. I think if you had something that just had like lines, you could just make like chiclet style teeth and then just put them really close together. So like the squared off pieces, and then just move them closer together to where you have that cutoff line in between each one. I would leave them separate though, just so you have that real nice defined line. But that's how I would go about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Can layers be merged? Okay. Are we referring to layers as in like the layers palette right here?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Bake all. Yeah, it just bakes everything down into one layer. What I would suggest is if you have multiple layers, make sure layer recording is turned off and then bake all. Layers get real weird if you leave recording on and then try to bake or try to export out like 2D textures or 2D images and stuff like that. Just turn off layer recording first and then bake all. In terms of like, can you merge this layer with this layer? I don't think so. I don't think they put that in here. Duplicate, delete, invert. Oh, actually, yeah, you can. Never mind. That's interesting. I did not realize that. Okay. Yeah, so there's a merge down right here. So yeah, I guess you can merge all of them, or you can merge some of them. Cool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I learned something new today. Right, Victoria got a butterfly. Good job on the butterfly. All right. Okay, I got a little bit, I think just a little bit of clarity on the sweater. You duplicated it, then froze subdivisions, and then put the stitches on the frozen one and created a new subtool. Yes, that's exactly what I did. Okay, but why is probably what you're wondering. Yeah, you Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let me explain why, because I think it might be a little bit confusing. Okay. ZBrush does not like it when you have something with subdivisions and you try to do an insert mesh on that model. Why is that? So if I go in here and basically what I'm doing is I'm putting history on this model. And if I try to insert something, let's do like an insert primitives, you'll see it gives me that error message. The reason why is basically because the model I'm trying to put in does not have an equal number of subdivisions for that model. So it doesn't have the same equal number of points of history, so to speak. So it is not a fan of that. So it needs something kind of like a blank canvas, or basically something simple to drop the model onto in order for it to work properly. So that's why a lot of times you'll see me do freeze subdivision levels, or I'll just outright just go and delete the subdivisions, and then I can go and put in as many of the models as I want, and then split those models off into a different subtool. So let's say I'll go over here, split, and then since all of these are all the same thing, I'll just do split similar parts, and it'll split off my little pill capsules into their own subtool. So part of that is with the insert mesh, depending on what that insert mesh is going to be, i.e. the stitches, which are literally just like little semicircular tubes, I don't want those to get dynameshed into the sweater at large. I don't need that. I don't want to lose that detail, because if I subdivide or if I dynamesh it, it's going to basically get lost in the entire sweater by itself. Otherwise, why did I even insert them in the first place? So that's kind of one reason why I split them off. And then, I might want to sculpt on them individually, or I may just want to have a little bit more control over them by themselves. Generally speaking, I don't like to have subtools where objects are touching each other, but they're not dynameshed. Usually I'll try to split them off if I need to. Now, if it's something like armor or scales or something like they're thematically linked, then I'll probably put them in one subtool just to organize it a little bit more simply for myself. So I don't have like 5 million subtools for a project. So it's a bit about organization, not losing the detail. It's kind of split between those two. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, that's all the questions. All right. Presley, I think you had a question. On Zoom, Presley. Okay. Presley, you're mute if you're talking. All right. Did anyone else have any questions over the weekend?
With the mouth, after you make like the mouth socket and like the lips and the teeth and the tongue, do you blend all that together to make one subtool?
No.
No. Okay, so
No.
it's always gonna stay separate.
Teeth, I keep separately. Tongue, I keep separately. Interior of the mouth, like the gums, I keep separately. And the reason why is I want that tongue to be free moving. While in real life, our tongue rests against the bottom of our mouth, and it's actually joined with skin to the bottom of our mouth. I want to have a bit more freedom with movement with that tongue. So I want to be able to lift it up and move it around. If we dynamesh or baleen, the bottom of that tongue, which is resting on the bottom of the mouth, it's going to basically merge together and we'll lose all that momentum, all that movement. Teeth, the reason why I keep them as a separate subtool, that is mostly so I can keep them separated from each other so that like, you know, each one of our teeth are separate pieces. It's the same idea there. And that goes into me thinking about how I would texture this with like materials and stuff. So I don't want, like my teeth and my gums would be two different materials. Like my teeth are hard and they're a little bit translucent. Whereas like the gums are not as translucent because it's, you know, it's not thin. And it's gonna be kind of wet. So there's a difference in material there that I'm trying to think about. And so again, I'm just laying that groundwork to make it easier later on for myself.
We're also not coloring this.
No.
Okay.
No, it's you're not my SLR section. Are you in SLR right now?
No.
Okay, so it'll make sense though, because a lot of what we're doing now is going to butt up against the character project in SLR. We actually take it and kind of continue some of this stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, I see why he did what he did in advanced. But then, you know, I understand why we did the retopology and why we're doing the modeling the way we're doing, because it makes it easier once you get into SLR and you're working on like a character in there. Okay. And for those of you that are in my SLR section, I hope you guys are like seeing this right now. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
It's not a question, but my ZBrush just crashed.
I'm
and it
sorry.
won't let me open, and I'm trying to re-download it, and so I'll let
It
you
won't
know.
let you open?
Yeah,
Yeah, I kept saying like error and everything.
it won't open, and so I'm trying to
Have you,
re-download it.
did you reboot your computer?
I did, it did not work. So I'm trying to re-download it, see how that works.
What, wait. What?
Something like crashed.
It crashed and it exited out of it, like it
Yeah.
closed it, and then I tried to reopen it and it would not.
Are you
open.
trying to open a file or are you just opening ZBrush
I tried to do
period?
both, it didn't work.
And you did a full reboot of the computer?
Yep, totally restarted it. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to re-download it, so see if that works.
That's weird. It's really weird.
I don't even know, I wasn't even doing anything weird. I was just trying to run a Boolean and it just happened.
The balloon is cursed.
Do you have hard drive space available?
Probably not, honestly, but I've done everything I can to.
Well, no, what I'm saying that is, I'm just wondering if maybe you don't have hard drive space and it could be it's crashing out because you don't have hard drive space. So check and see if you have hard drive space. Because if you go under, you're on a Mac, right? Okay. So like this computer here has like not much space left, but if I go under, I wonder if it'll even let me get there. So on my workstation at home, I have like a 256 gigabyte SSD. Bad decision. Don't go with something that small. But it constantly is running out of space. So anyway, I have to go into my public folder, public documents, ZBrush data 2022, and then quick saves. And like, there is like easily on my computer, like 30, 40 gigs worth of stuff after like only a month of working in ZBrush that you can get rid of. It's just, there's so much crap here that you can like delete. And these are all of your quick saves. So like when you're in ZBrush and you go to Lightbox quick save, that's what this is. That's what that is.
What would
Which
that be on a Mac?
I'm not 100% sure. You have a users folder. I don't know if you would, I don't remember if you have a public users folder, but since this is underneath that, you could take a look under there and see if there's like under like a documents folder or a public users documents folder and see if that's located. Otherwise, I would have to say, look at Googling it because I'm not sure. Okay, what was your question? Would like your characters to have what? I mean, if you want to give me uvula, I think they're funny, so that's why I like putting it in.
If I'm gonna make glasses for them all, do I want the side bits, like these bits to be blended in with them? Like,
I would honestly on the glasses, I would do them separate. Like I would make these like because it's gonna hinge in and out. I would just make this a separate piece. So like let's just say for whatever reason, if you ever want to make the character taking off his glasses and folding them, you at least got that option. Otherwise, you never have to see them, you know, get bent or anything. They just stay straight. Modeling wise, I would think it would just be easier just to make them as separate pieces anyways. I would definitely have the lenses as separate pieces. Like I wouldn't do like the frames and the lenses as one piece. I would do them separately. So if you ever textured it, you can make the lenses clear.
Can we go over on how to make glasses?
yeah, there's- when you were making glasses, it didn't get recorded.
That I thought that did get recorded.
No, I didn't. I checked.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm gonna start off with a cube. Let's get rid of some of this. I'm gonna do glasses. I need to have an eyeball, right?
One monkey eyeball.
We don't judge. We don't judge. Okay. So for this guy. I think I did the glasses with Z Modeler. Is that how I did it?
I think so, because that's how I'm doing it, right?
Okay. So we could do initialize and do a simplified cube. That's what that is. It's simplified because the topology is simplified. You could do this with a Boolean also, by the way. You don't have to do it with Z Modeler. So if you feel more comfortable with Boolean, that's fine.
Like what if the glasses are round, would I do them as a circle or still do the cube?
Think of them as a circle. I may even suggest a cylinder because they're gonna be flat. Okay. Let's say go back to Z Modeler. Let's like kind of all these faces, holding down Alt. And I'm gonna go in, right click on a polygon, inset. Let's do inset region. And then I'm gonna take, right click again. I'm gonna do Q mesh. And then I'm going to polygroup island. Since this polygroup here is not adjoined with its sister polygon or polygroup. So, should just cut through. Why are we not just cutting through? Part of it is. All right, let's try it this way. I want to do single poly instead. Just cut through each one of these.
You're just dragging them out. or just clicking?
Yeah, well, the Q mesh, I'm dragging them back so they should delete whatever's behind them. But I'm getting some weird issue here. Let me change material. It's a bit easier to see. Okay, let's try a different way. So Q mesh isn't going to work for us. I'm going to do delete single poly. So something like that. It's a little bit hard to see it when it's only showing one side of the face. I'm going to go display properties, double. So we can actually see everything. What I want to do is basically do a, it's called a bridge. And that's going to be one edge to another to create a new face. So we'll do a bridge from edges. So I'll click on the first edge, click on the second edge. You'll see it pops over.
Can you just hold Alt for that window to pop out? Or
Now
you
I'm
can
right clicking.
right clicking?
So that's basically going to be the start of the frame. I could do a zero mesh on it and then kind of sculpt this up if I wanted to. And then for the lens, maybe we could use Boolean for the lens. So use a cube. Bring it over, make it bigger, make it thinner. So I'm just going to sit right here in the center. I want to make the frame essentially the starting point, and then actually, you know what? Now I'm going to take the frame, put it down below the lens, make the lens starting point, and make the frame the cutter. So you'll see what I'm gonna get is basically a cookie cut. A cookie cut out the lens, and they have the other part of it right here. So I can do boolean, make boolean mesh. Bring in the cookie cut. And then I can do a split parts. So then I get the extra bit here. I can delete it, and then I get the lens right there. So that can be how I get the get that piece in there. And I'll do a zero mesh on that. Then, so we need the need little earpieces. So I'm just going to use that cube again. Kind of make it generally the same shape as the earpieces. So something like that. I think using the deformers or the transforms in here, maybe like a bend curve would be nice. So I can move this around. Let's change the resolution so I can maybe get some different shapes. Okay. Let's do straighten that up right here. All right, cool. Accept it. And that would be my earpiece. It's kind of rough. Let's go under geometry and zero mesh that. See, it's still a bit rough. Let's zero mesh it, but I'm going to bring the target polygon count down. Still looking kind of rough. So maybe let's try to do a Dynamesh. That's not bad. So that's kind of looking a little crappy right there. Very simply, I'm just going to go in and kind of smooth it. It's got some harder edges I don't necessarily want to lose. So I'm going to clay polish it. I'm going to throw a couple of polishes on it. And that tightens it up really nicely. There you go, you get part of your glasses. Let's do a mirror and weld.
Do you do the mirror weld too for the other lens too? So you do both eyes instead of one.
Yeah, I would be literally just making like half the glasses. So I would start off like making like this piece and this piece, then do the mirror and weld, and it would come over to this piece.
And the nose part you just.
Yeah, I mean, you could just turn symmetry on and just make a little nose piece. And then like the whole frame up here, depending on what your frame's gonna look like mine's just one piece of plastic. So I would just Dynamesh that together.
Okay, so the glasses
But-
you do Dynamesh.
But like, does anyone have like metal frames? Yeah, so yours, probably the nose bridge on yours is separate from the rest of your frame. So if that's the style you're going for, I might go with like a separate piece with the nose bridge. Okay. Any other questions before we get started today?
Eyelashes, do we do those attached to the eyeball or attached to the head?
I would definitely not do it on the eyeball because they don't, yeah. I wouldn't even do it attached to the head. I would do it as an insert mesh.
Okay, these.
Or you would maybe just append a sphere, model it into an eyelash, and then you could just duplicate it
Okay.
if you needed to. What you got, Kiki?
I think that's for because I don't know how to do like a big split to give it its own like separate subtool so that it can like do blowing and like that's where.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm a little stuck right there because I can't do blowing to get to like the next part.
Okay. So for the hair, I was using an extract instead of a baleen to actually get the hair cap. Is that what you're trying to do?
No, I mean like when I made the person's hair, I took spheres and I molded them and that was fine, but the issue was that now that I did, I think I accidentally might have like diagnosed it to the head, so now
Oh,
on
okay.
there I can't.
I get you. Okay. So let's address that now. Okay, so let's say okay, so you're kind of like here, where it's like stuck to the head. So okay, so we need to separate this out. So a couple of options we could think about would be, okay, so let's try a balloon, like you were suggesting or saying. So we could take a sphere. Well, sorry, I'm just trying to think of like some different approaches. What might be the easiest way to go about it? I wonder if this might work. Let me try this. I'm going to do Control Shift. I'm going to go to Slice Curve, and I'm going to turn on poly groups. I'm going to switch it over to lasso, and I'm just going to basically lasso off the hair. That's going to make it into its own poly group. Okay, so we've isolated the hair portion as a poly group. Again, doing Control Shift using a slice tool. So then what I would suggest is do a group split. So then the head is its own subtool, since again, that's a different poly group. And then the hair is its own subtool because that is a different poly group. Okay. Here, just watch this for a second. Just watch up here.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to mask it. All of this. Stuff, it's not like a small, like, shape. It's like a pretty awkward shape.
Okay.
So that's-
You could do the you could do it this way. You could do a paint mask. And then under polygroups, there's a mask, there's a group masked option. And that would give you more finesse in going in and painting what you need to group. So that'll be right, group masked right there. That might be an option if the lasso doesn't work for you. Okay. So you're gonna have a bunch of open faces right here. So I would go in, you could either try a Dynamesh to close it. And see if that works for you, or if that doesn't, gives you some bad results, just go under modify topology and then do close holes. I think Dynamesh tends to be a little bit better about closing holes because it adds faces and actually kind of hits the curve a little bit better. But this might work as well, and it's a lower resolution option. Okay, you're gonna have a hole in your head, don't we all? So you need to fill this in. So again, Dynameshing can close it, but it's not necessarily gonna like maintain the shape. So then you could take material like a sphere. Let's do like an insert sphere. Something like that. And then use that to like add that material back. And then just turn your hair back on. And you'll have like two different subtools. Do you think those will work for you? Okay. I hope so too. All right. All right, guys, 9 o'clock. We need to get moving on today. Any last questions? So for today, I want to talk about topology. And going about different methods for retopologization and getting this guy ready to go into Maya for rigging. So let me try to see if I can find one of my character models. from Autodesk's website. Okay, this one will. I think this will work. Okay, let's see, can I get this to go away? There we go. All right. So this is a character named Scupacabra. He's from a project. Well, he's an old character, but his thing is he basically is a mythological creature or folklore creature that lives in Tex-Mex restaurants and eats all of your chips. You guys ever notice like you run out of chips before you run out of salsa? This is the little bastard that steals all of your chips.
Just the head.
I mean, maybe. I'm not stealing anything from James Cameron, but I'll take it. So anyway, topology on a character is basically referring to the flow of edges and faces on the character's body. So this is all really super important stuff because this essentially allows a character to be animated and posed and worked with. It's important because, again, it does allow you to animate a character because it allows you to rig a character more efficiently. It allows you to UV a character, which then in turn allow you to texture the character. Now UVs, for those of you not in SLR right now, is basically taking the skin of a character, slicing it up and flaying it out flat. So you can paint on it either in Photoshop, Substance Painter, or any other number of texturing programs that are out there in the world right now. So it's kind of a big deal to be able to actually easily lay out a character and flat and be able to texture it. Having good topology also leads to proper deformations in the model itself as you animate it. Having n-gons, having tons of tries, having bad topology or bad face flow, basically will make the character deform weirdly in ways that you don't necessarily want. So in general, characters need to have consistent loops, edge loops and face loops that go around the body. So like say, for example, this character has edge loops that go around the neck. And I can double click on them, you'll see they will select and go all the way around the neck. This makes it super easy for me when I'm UVing him because I can literally just cut the head off and slice it open and lay it flat really, really easily. If the character is made entirely of triangles, that makes it really hard because the topology essentially dead ends in the beginning of at the beginning of the edge and the very end of the edge right there. So it makes it more difficult. You have to go through and actually select each one of these by hand if it's a triangle. So it's important to keep note of this. Now, there are some general rules when it comes to topology. Generally speaking, you're going to want to have multiple edge loops at every joint that's going to be moved on the character, okay? So areas like the hips need to have multiple edges that go around the hip by itself. Let me get this guy in a more neutral stance. So we can kind of see. Oh, gotta get you. Okay. Oh yeah, and I'm in a weird position. Oh, that's because your legs are. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, the edge flow. So you can see here it's going around consistently around each one of these limbs. And then we see a higher concentration or density of edges that go around moving joints. So things like hips, you'll see we get a few extra edge loops going around through there. And then areas like the knees, we get a few extra that go through there as well. The ankles get a couple. And then we have consistent edge looping that goes around each one of these toes. Okay, so everything that moves, you have to have edge loops go around each one of those joints for it to be able to bend, deform, and fold over each other. Having too few edge loops or too many can actually cause problems. Having too few means you'll have some weird stretching that happens when you're bending the character. So like the knees or the ankles might end up stretching out in a bad way. Yeah, it will. If you don't have enough edge loops, it ends up becoming deformed. So like, let's see. So here, you'll see how like the underside of the thigh is kind of like stretching out weirdly. Probably I should have some extra edge loops here in order to accommodate for that because it's stretching out kind of badly. But also having too many edge loops can cause problems because it causes extra work for you, because we have to do what's referred to as weight painting, meaning that you're going to go in and actually paint in the weights of how your skin is going to deform as it is influenced by each one of these objects here. These are referred to as joints. So I have a hip joint, a groin joint, knee joint, ankle joints. Yeah, it was referred to as a root joint, and they have multiple spine and tail joints going throughout the body. So there's a weird balancing act you kind of have to play in terms of you don't want to have too high of a poly count for your character, but you also don't want to have too low. generally speaking, when we're doing retopology, you want to have a generally consistent face flow. So where the faces aren't dramatically larger than their cousins or their neighbors. But if you have things like detail that needs to be accommodated, you're going to put in extra faces to accommodate that. So here's an example. We have these face loops going around the eyes, but we have quite a few extra ones than we had in some other parts of the body. The reason why is that character is going to blink his eyes. We all blink our eyes. So we need extra topology here in order to accommodate that. So each one of these has 3 or 4 to 5 individual face loops or edge loops that go around concentrically around the eye. They go around as constant loops, not spirals. So it ends up making the deformation a little bit easier. The mouth is another example of something that needs to have good, proper edge looping. For the same reason, the mouth is extremely mobile and deformable. We make a lot of different shapes with it, so we need to be able to have the topology to support that amount of mobility, since we have so many muscles and stuff inside of our mouth. So for him, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different edge loops that just go around the ring of the mouth, just so if he ever talks, I can deform the hell out of that mouth and make it really work. Same exact thing for a human. You would follow the exact same pattern. So let's see. See if we can open up the other guy. We'll see. We'll get to him when he opens. So yeah. So in general, with characters, all characters are going to have roughly the same pattern of edge looping. You're going to have concentric edge loops around eyes, around the mouth, around basically all limbs. You're going to have extra edge loops around the knees, anything that basically bends. So like, specific joints like ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, elbows, wrists, toes, fingers, because you want to make sure that all deforms properly. Anything that's really hypermobile, you're probably going to add extra edge loops around there. See, like around here, this tail, it actually has a squash and a stretch ability. It's a stretchy tail. And so what I did was I added extra edge loops that could actually expand like an accordion. Okay, see how they split apart? And then when I bring it back together, they go back to their original place. So you want to make sure you have enough edge loops there so that when you take this character out and you want to make him go steal some chips and salsa, you can stretch that tail out so you can beat the hell out of the server that's chasing him out of the restaurant. And it still actually looks good. Stretchiness. Yeah, you can do stretchy approaches for eyelids and like lips. Yeah, for sure. By the way, this is actually referred to as a ribbon spine, where we're using a nervous plane to actually create that kind of rubber bandy look to it. So if we translate this need over to a humanoid, well, not humanoid, but more humanoid character, if you'll open, you'll kind of say, you'll see a similar approach. So here's Lizard Boy. Oh, he's a man, don't worry. Yeah, I guess he's not a boy. Lizard puberty hit him. He's got the muscles. He's got a 6-pack. So on this character, again, being more human, there are some patterns of the topology that are a little bit more evident. So he's got a lot of musculature on his body. And so the topology here, while it still observes the same rules that I talked about before, it does accentuate that sculpt that's coming in from ZBrush. So here we have the muscles on the shoulders and the arms, and then the topology actually follows and flows around that musculature. And you'll see some patterns of the or some patterns of topology here that accentuate again more of that musculature. Then the forearms, same thing. Again, we have even spread down the forearm with the topology. But you guys notice that little twist right here? See how the topology is kind of twisting? Any idea why that might be there?
Is it because his arm is twisted?
Hang on, Natasha, what were you saying?
Is it because your bone kind of like twists there?
What, who was that online that was talking?
Lucy.
Lucy, what were you saying, Lucy?
No, if I was asking if it's because his hand, like his arm is twisted at an angle,
Yeah.
so it's responding.
Yeah, you're both right. Natasha, you nailed it. It's because there is that bone that twists over itself. So we have, if you guys ever eat hot wings? It's gonna get a little gross. You guys eat hot wings, right? Okay.
Maybe once.
You guys have ever eaten a chicken wing? Okay, so you got the drum up here, that's the part that goes into the shoulder, and you got the flat down here, that's this piece. And then the gross nub is the hand. Okay, there's nothing good in there. So this piece right here has two bones, okay? Birds can't do this, but we can. Maybe birds can do this. I don't know if they can do this, honestly, but I'm just gonna say they can't. So we can rotate. We can rotate our wrists around. We can also bend our wrists up and down. And so, we're not just rotating the wrist on a ball socket. It's actually rotating two bones inside of here. They actually twist over each other. So I'm kind of thinking about that as I'm making this topology. I am preemptively twisting the topology to match that wrist rotation and the way those muscles actually fold over on top of each other. So that's actually I'm thinking that when I animate and rotate that character's wrist back out, it actually will end up straightening up the topology. So I'm preemptively twisting it. Again, to accentuate that musculature that's in the hand or in the arm. The hand itself, the topology here, again, accentuates the muscle in the palm, right here at the base of the thumb. Each one of these, let's turn off the joints. Each one of these fingers has a ton of edge loops and face loops in there so that I can go in and very easily bend the fingers. I have not actually weight painted the claws, so that's why they're acting weird. But you can see how the fingers, again, like bend over each other. He's got rubber claws, apparently. And then that same thought is taken in here with the knees and how we have a bunch of extra topology going in here for the knees, so the knees can actually bend. Same thing for the wrists or the ankles, and then each one of the toes has a ton of topology there. You'll notice here in the hips, it's not just a straight line. It's something I really want you guys to kind of remember as you're doing this. For characters that walk like bipedal characters, the topology really should not, if it looks like this, should not just cut off the legs flat at the bottom and then keep going down like that. Like that's a big no-no, because you're not going to get that same hip action in here. If you lift these vertices up, you create this almost like swimsuit line or this underwear line on the hips. And the reason why we have that in here is one, physically, that's what you look like. Like your hip, your leg, if you lift your leg up, you have a fold right here. So you actually want to try to create that when you're model or when you're retopologizing the character, because when you rig it, you kind of want it to move like a real person. And secondly, you want to have enough topology to actually stretch this area. I don't care what you call it, the groin, whatever else you can come up for it, I don't care. This needs to have a ton of topology in there. So when you do like a split or just literally lift the character's leg, it doesn't tear itself out in a very painful manner. It's not pretty. So you need to make sure that you have plenty of topology in that area right here as well. Same thing for the butt. You need to have extra topology in here again, because this is super mobile. Right? I mean, we walk on our legs, so we want to make sure we have plenty of area for this to move and stretch out. And then last but not least, this boy got some lips. So I'm going to give him plenty of topology around here to be able to actually move those lips. So all of those extra edge loops and stuff in here really help out with that. And the same thing with the eyes. He's got a lot of topology around those eyes. So he can blink, squint, frown, furrow his brow, whatever he needs to do to make him look, menacing. And then actually around the nostrils, I've created some extra topology here so he can flare his nostrils if need be. I don't remember if I actually put that in there or not. Maybe not. I don't remember. Anyway, that was the intention. But, again, we're also supporting all this extra detail. So some of these rules for topology do get bent a little bit. So like the concentric face loops generally do actually go around the neck like this, but they do have to be kind of changed up a little bit in order to accept some of these extra detail pieces, like the big scales on his back. Okay, so this part of the project may get a little bit more confusing, just because we're trying to think about, again, rigging and animating this character down the line, but it's not going to be, it shouldn't be too difficult for y'all. I think you can handle it. So for the retopology portion of this, we're going to go over a couple of approaches. One of them is actually retopologizing inside of Maya. We're going to be using what's called quad draw to do it. And then the other part is I'll show you guys how to retopologize more or less effectively inside of ZBrush. But for your characters, like the main body that we've been sculpting, like, James has a body underneath those clothes, right? Like we sculpted that. You have to retopo that in Maya, okay? I'm just being very explicit. You have to retopo that in Maya. It's gonna take longer, but you have to do it because I need you to understand and conceptualize why we're doing this, okay? Because why we're doing the proper retopology. And I'll show you the difference in what retopologizing in ZBrush will give you, because it's halfway effective, but like when it comes to stuff like the face and the fingers, it kind of sucks. So we can use it to get away with like the clothes and stuff. But beyond that, high value targets like the hands, the face, toes, things like that, we really need to retopo inside of Maya. Okay. So let's go back to Mr. James. So this is where we left him. Boy's looking pretty good. All right, so what I want to do is I need to get his body out into Maya for me to work on. One thing I do need to do is I need to open this mouth just a little bit so I can actually work on it in Maya. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty difficult. So I'm going to go and actually grab my Move Topological brush. I'm going to go to Geometry, lower my subdivision level, and I'm just going to barely crack open that mouth. This is going to make it easier for me to use Quad Draw. There we go. That should be good. Especially. Okay. So just a little bit of an opening is good for me. And I'm gonna go and take this and export it. I'm gonna export out just the body. Please note that I am exporting out the low res mesh. If you export out your multi-million poly mesh, probably going to have a bad time in Maya just because it's not going to be able to read it. So you need to export out something that's lower resolution. Okay. If for whatever reason you do not have a lower resolution model, you need to make a copy, or you need to get a lower resolution version of this somehow. Okay. We've already talked about ZRemesher as an option. So I would start there and try to get a lower copy or lower resolution model of it. If ZRemesher does not support some of the details you have in your model for whatever reason, which is entirely possible, let's actually check and see. The eyes on him are a little bit, the eyelids are a little bit lost on the low res. It might make sense to go to a slightly higher resolution model in order to get all of the detail that you need. So maybe like the eyelids right there need to be exported out. So just go to a different subdivision level. Additionally, you can also get a lower res version of your model through using something called Decimation Master. You click Pre-Process Current, Decimate Current. And what that's going to do is it'll actually look at your entire model and it'll figure out how it can drop the face count without actually losing any detail. It gives you horrible topology. So everything's tries and it's very broken. But it's fantastic for, again, dropping that face count. So pre-process current and then decimate current. And it'll go from like 1.5 million to 200,000 faces with really not much of a difference in surface quality. But it changes everything to tries. So you'll see some areas where it kind of, if you don't really have much detail, it may have like larger faces. And then other areas, you'll have much more denser face counts right in there. So you can export that actually out and use that if you need to. Yeah.
What's a good low price count? If you throw one into this?
Say that one more time.
What's a good low price count if we're gonna have it for the model?
I mean, I would say like 72,000 faces, 770, like sub 100,000 faces is going to be easier on your computer. You know, it kind of comes down to like 1 million faces is just going to slow your computer down really badly. So the higher the face count, the slower that computer is going to run. So, you know, if you have something that's like 18,000 faces and you're losing a lot of detail in there, then, you know, move up a little bit. 72,000, you know, a little bit higher than that, 289,000. I've retopoed models that were 200,000 faces and it works fine. But it all, again, it depends on how good your computer is. So I can't give you a clear answer on that. Yeah, it just really depends on what computer you're using. Just try to go as low as you can without losing too much detail. Because again, that detail is kind of the reason why we're doing the retopology. We want to try to capture a lot of that information through this process. Okay. So tell you what, I need those eyelids in here. So let's go with subdivision level 2. Let's re-export this bad boy. Let's replace the one we just exported with a slightly higher one. So I'm going to go back over to Maya. I would say yes, just to keep us all together. Want to take the body low res, drop it into my scene. Don't move it. For the love of God, do not move your model when you bring it in from ZBrush right now, okay? Reason why is we eventually will take this back into ZBrush. We don't want the models to be separated or offset. Right, Floor? You remember? When we had the lizard guy offset? Yeah, we don't want that. So keep it in the same place, okay? When you click on your character, it's entirely possible you may have this thing in separate parts. Maybe you may click on, you know, a finger and the rest of it doesn't highlight, meaning it's all different pieces. Quick fix, select everything, go to mesh, combine, and it'll combine it all as one piece. It's not merge, you still have probably separate poly shells in there, but it's good enough for what we're doing. The reason why that might happen is simply by having multiple poly groups of the character. So if like the nose is a poly group and let's say well, I can't do it because I have multiple subdivision levels, but if the nose or the ears or the head are different poly groups, when it exports, it may actually create separate meshes. So easy fix in Maya is just combine everything. Easy fix in ZBrush is go under polygroups, auto groups, and it'll just kind of put everything together in one polygroup. Okay. All right. Let's retopo. So I'm going to go ahead and click on his head, and I'm going to go and make a new display layer. Let's call it OG body. Rename this OG body mesh. I'm going to go over to symmetry, turn it on for object X. reason why it's object X is because my character is facing down the Z axis, since I modeled him in ZBrush to face down that proper axis. And then it's mirroring on object X because, again, X is going from one side to the other. Right here, this little magnet next to no live surface, if you click it, it'll take whatever is selected and make it your live surface. That's going to be important for this to actually work. If this isn't turned on, the next part's not going to work. So select your mesh, select the magnet, and the next thing, you should not be able to click on the body. You click all you want, it's not going to do anything. That's good. We don't actually want it to do anything. All right, next thing is, let's go ahead and go under Mesh Tools, Quad Draw. So this tool here is actually kind of interesting. It's kind of like a modeling tool. I use it mainly for retopology, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Let me recenter you. There we go. I can actually rotate it properly. All right. It's meant for, I mean, you can model with it. I've used this to model, like do polygonal modeling in Maya for like modeling heads. It's kind of neat. So the basis of it is you basically lay down points. You can click, 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 click. And when you create 4 points and hold down Shift, you can create a face. It's going to be a game. You guys like puzzles? I hope you do, because it's going to be one hell of a puzzle. So the way I start this off is I create islands of patterns, and then I connect the patterns. You're sitting there smiling like you're like, I love puzzles. You just got this smile on your face, man, like you're just excited. Is this fear? Somewhat? Okay, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be good. All right. So all we're going to do is we're going to create a pattern, okay, around our high impact areas, okay? So again, just I'm laying down four points and then creating a face. So this first area is going to be around the eyes. I'm going to make a face loop that goes all the way around the eyes. And then hold down Shift and then drop in these faces, okay? Right here, you see where these are touching? If you hold down Control and then Shift, you can delete. If you want to move a vertex around, you can click it and drag it if you need to. You can hold down Shift and then again, drop them in between. Generally speaking, I would suggest laying down one edge loop that goes all the way down the center that defines the left and right symmetry of the body. Also, if you bring the points together, they'll actually will kind of merge together. So if you take this point, it'll snap over to another point. Turn off object X real quick. Just snap this over. It's a little tricky in some of these tighter areas. So I'm going to drop in a point right here. And that's actually going to let me kind of bridge it up. And then I can just real easily fill in the other point. Turn symmetry back on. If you hold down shift, you can smooth. I think there's a little bit of symmetry that's off on this character. It's the way it's acting. Yeah. A little bit of off symmetry right here. Just a little bit. Okay. Not going to kill it, but it may cause some problems if your symmetry is not perfect on your model. So you just got to be a little careful with the areas that are just right in the middle. All right, anyway. So let's go ahead and throw in some more points. Just snap them in. Usually I'll just lay down a bunch of points at once and then pop in the faces as needed. So we got our little robin mask. Next, I'm going to basically start putting edge loops around the bases of major appendages, or try to get in the major edge loops I need. Let's say for like the face, the arms, torso, things like that. And then again, I'm just going to start basically filling in the gaps. So for his mouth, let's do a nice face loop that goes around the mouth itself. For the top and bottom lips, I'm going to try to keep a similar number of faces. So if there's going to be a face loop on the bottom, I'm going to try to put a face loop on the top that's coming out of the top lip, just to try to keep it similar. Now, if you have like a super not symmetrical character in terms of top and bottom lip, like say Scuba Cabra isn't, because he has like that gigantic underbite, clearly that's not going to be possible. But for this one, it is. Okay. And then let's run another edge loop out. Okay. Now I need some extra edge loops in here, so I'm going to hold down Control. And you'll see I can actually snap in edges. I'm going to add in some extras. See that cavity inside of the mouth? You have to go inside of there. I'm sorry. It's not that, it's not as hard as it looks. Okay. So the name of the game here is basically just trying to, again, create nice concentric face loops around different parts of the body. Trying to keep everything nice and even. So generally for kind of some of these spots, I will do kind of large stretches and then just run conforming edge loops inside of it to make it a little bit easier to work with. Make sure you don't leave holes. It's really easy to forget something and then not fill it in, and so you'll end up with some holes in there.
Like in the ZBrush to not leave those.
In this retopology process, it's really easy to have a hole that you just like forget about. Also, try to make sure you're doing full concentric face loops. It's really easy if you're not paying attention to just start spiraling. And you're like, oh yeah, I got the finger done. Well, it's like a candy cane. It just spirals up, and you really don't want to do that. And then I like to go in and smooth this every once in a while. Let's see, there we go. Then, like say the inside of the lip right here. Some of these thinner areas can get a little tricky. So just kind of be patient and just kind of keep working. You want to make sure, again, you're adding in enough topology for, like these lips and stuff to actually have some decent mobility. Right here, feel like kind of like arcs over. Relax that a little bit. Right here. We do have an area where we have some extra edge loops coming into an area that doesn't have as much edge looping. So we need to kind of think about how you can essentially maybe get rid of a couple edge loops, or maybe multiply the number that are coming out of this area. So as you can see, like one side has, let's see, we have 2, and then this side right here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So we have 6 edge loops. So we essentially need to figure out how to get rid of like 2/3 of these guys. It would make sense to try to like run it in like over here because we also have like these edge loops that are gonna come in from the corner of the mouth. So it would, this would be my approach. Essentially take these two faces, we're gonna split them right down the center here. And then we can take these two faces and these two, and then create essentially what amounts to as a loop where it loops back in on itself. And so you'll see the face look goes down, over, and back up. And then these two essentially come down, over, and then they'll go out this direction. The face flow will make it go out and into the interior of the mouth. And then this one just flows more directly into the back of the throat. So we're kind of redirecting these different face loops in here. All right, let's look at some other areas. All right, so base of the head, just to be, just to make sure you get it out of the way. Have a nice concentric face loop in here. I can take like some of these vertices and then drag them down to the shoulders. I'm going to insert a few edge loops here to kind of conform back to the original shape. And again, also giving him good mobility in the neck. And this will be honestly the same approach for like the arms and the legs. Again, you're just doing I think it's basically like just like an octagon. You're just doing like 8 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, no, 6 of a hexagon. And then you can just connect it down here at the elbows. Okay, grab that one, grab that one. A little bit of a way to get through a little bit quicker is if I grab I'm just jumped out of the quad draw tool and I went back and just did an edge select. So you'll see here, this is our edge. I can very easily grab that edge, hit Control E, so I'm extruding. And then I'm just going to move it out to the rest, just right here. And since we have this mesh set up as a live surface, anything we do to is going to stick to that live surface. So we're kind of throwing a little bit of just poly modeling into here. Then I can go back to quad draw. And kind of reorganize. As you're extruding out, you'll see they kind of get a little warped in their position. I'm leaving that edge loop here at the elbow specifically so I know kind of where my elbow is going to be, but also because I need to add extra edge loops, at that joint, since that's going to be a bending joint. So for this, at minimum, you have to have 3 edge loops at each one of these flexing joints. One above, one below, and then one at the actual joint itself for it to actually properly bend. Now, at 3, it's going to bend. It's not going to bend well, but that's the absolute minimum you can go with. 2, 1, it's not going to work. You got to have at least 3. Okay. Generally, I would even say go with a higher number. 5 would work even better. Then areas like the shoulder, same thing. You need to go with a higher number of face loops. Okay. So for the shoulder, I'm going to go ahead and attach so they're actually connecting. And then I'm going to go and take this edge loop or this face loop here, and then connect them in the center. Just like that. So this will allow me to have a little bit more stretchability in the shoulder region. Right here. And then fill this in. And I can add in a few extra edge loops here. Generally speaking, when I'm going to be adding edge loops, I want to make sure they don't kind of go wild and go like all over the body. I want to make sure they're going into what's like basically a closed circuit. So just like randomly like throwing extra edge loops. Like here, you may end up running an edge loop like up into the mouth or up into the head or something you weren't necessarily intending. So just be very cognizant of where you're moving or where you're ending up adding these extra edge loops. Because it may end up just not working out the way you're hoping. Because you can extra edge loops will essentially create reinforcements. So like edges, plates, things like that will show up more on the body itself. Because you have a bunch of edge loops that are like all like right next to each other and they're not spread out over the surface. So they're going to look really weird. All right, so these extra guys right here, I'm going to take them out and kind of pull them out over the shoulder. Think of kind of like Captain America's cowl, how it kind of like comes like around the neck and like over the shoulder. That pattern is what this kind of reminds me of a little bit. Not sure if it's referred to as a cowl or whatever this piece is that goes across. We'll add a couple extra right here, so we have enough to support. Let's do an extra edge loop around this part of the arm, one around here. So we just accommodate more of that circular shape. And then we'll add in a few more here. And remember that twist I talked about? Okay. Here's how I accomplish that. Grab the vertices on the wrist. I'm just going to rotate. Just going to rotate about 45 degrees. And I do it at this point because then when I go back to quad draw, I can just insert edge loops and it's following that twist. You can do it, honestly, you can do that twist afterwards. You would just turn on soft select and you would still be able to create the twist. And then just smooth it out. He's gonna look a little bit like an S&M character for a minute. I'm very aware of that. It's okay. I'm just glad he didn't have nipples.
That's so like.
I mean, if that bothers you, at least he didn't have a penis. So
I mean.
she'd have to read apologize a penis.
Oh,
All right. Speaking of his groin, he'll have pants on. Don't worry. But right now he's gonna have a thong. It's like Wallace and Gromit getting a thong.
I was about to say.
Okay, so I'm gonna do that loop right around here, around the swimsuit line. And then we will take the groin area and essentially just go across the groin. Let's do it. Do it right. Oh, come here. There we are. There we go. So again, we want to have a nice clean face loop that's going basically through the center of the groin. Some characters might be a little bit harder than others. He's pretty bow-legged down there, so it's pretty easy to get down in there and look. But for some of you guys, might have a little bit closer areas. You know, it might be a little bit tougher to actually go in there and redraw. Take that out. Actually, you know what? It's easier. Just do this. Just add it in, did a cut and then add it in. All right, my first triangle. So here I ran into a little bit of an issue because I can't just cleanly just go up there. I want to keep kind of this edge loop or face loop that's kind of going around. I don't really have anything that can go flatly across. Don't necessarily need to add an extra edge loop to make this into a quad. So what I'm gonna do is just fill it in and it's gonna be a tri, but I can turn it into a quad. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the tri right in between it. You see we have two matching tris. And then if I put in an edge right in between it, it turns these both into quads. Okay. I have pretty heavy faith when I'm going through and doing this that any tri you end up with, you can usually turn into a quad somehow. If you look hard enough, you usually can find a matching tri on the other side of the body that you can, you know, liberate from its three-sided oppression and turn it into an enlightened four-sided polygon. Fill it in, fill it in. Sweet. He's got some trunks. Let's add some extra edge loops here. Smooth it out. Again, he needs to be pretty mobile. So we'll make sure we add enough edges and faces and whatnot here so we can actually move around easily. And smooth these out as we need. Okay. All right, the belly here. So that'll be in my center waist right there. And then I'm basically just gonna extend it up and extend it down and then work from there. Can anyone forecast problems I might run into or challenges as I'm going south or north? Yeah, I'm gonna have to either increase the number of edges, vertical edges here, or I'm gonna have to decrease the amount of edges up there. So it's gonna be a little bit of both, really. I'm going fairly simple with the number of edges down here right now because again, there's no detail. Like it's literally, he's just a tube. He's just a hot dog shaped tube. Which again, by the way, I say that as a joke, but every one of the characters in this film is designed off of food. So he is a hot dog. So let's see what we can actually put together. So the belly, I think we can just do a straight run down here. The sides, I think we can do that pretty easily. That means that'll leave that piece to go with. The back, let's do down here. Because remember I said I really want to keep a nice, consistent bilateral symmetry edge that just runs down right down the body. And then I need to do like these two that are going to go into like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I got to deal with that. Okay. So this technique I'm going to do is called corner to corner. Basically, it is going to be creating like, I think 2 or 3 quads inside of this one area right here. And it's going to solve this problem of having one edge to 2 edges. What I have to have is a matching one on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and split this belly, this belly face into 2. And then I'm going to go and take and fill in this quad right here. And since I filled this in, I got this kind of like 7. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and fill this in and then fill this in. Okay. So that's corner to corner. It's going from this corner to that corner. It's creating that extra edge right there. All right. So where I had, you know, what could have been 1 quad, it ended up being 1, 2, 3 quads right there. But essentially prevents me having to like run an extra edge loop all the way around. All right, let's deal with these guys. So I think what I'd like to do is essentially take some of these and run them up and over. So this face right here, let's lower this one, kind of move this up and over. That's going to go up, over, and then back down into the leg. So you'll see that face flow right here. I'm going to do the same thing here. 1, 2, boom, up, over, and then back down. And then I have this area right here to deal with. So let's throw a point in the center. Let's take care of this guy. And then we can fill in this one right here. And let's figure out where we want to do our try. So I can do a quad here and a try on the left, or a quad on the left and try on the right. So what does that give to me, or what does that allow me to do? So the try, essentially one of the bases of it would come down into the leg, or if I do it on the other side, I could do another one that comes around to the other side. I would ideally like them to kind of connect in the center, just because that's going to be a little bit easier and just one less edge to deal with. So let's figure out how we can make that happen. I'm going to delete these, and I'm going to kind of toothpaste tube. I'm going to basically push this like a toothpaste tube, and then push the tries into the center. So I just deleted those pieces, filled this in with a quad, filled this in with a quad, filled. There we go. There we go. That's what I want. I could either do a quad in the center. That's going to lose me that interior edge loop right there. Or I could do 2 tries on the outside and then do a edge in the center, and that'll actually give me my 2 quads. That works. Drop in that edge. Boom. Perfect. That's great. That's what I want. Let's throw an extra couple of edges. And you'll see as we throw in the edges, you'll see it just conforms just a little bit better to the surface, and then smooth it. You'll see it just kind of evens out the size of the faces. Looks really good. All right. You guys ever watch Hellraiser? He's got the high-waisted pants that Pinhead wears. You know, they kind of have like, they're like cutting through them. Yeah, those are nasty. All right. Let's do 1 through here. That's going to be a little hard to connect. So let's bridge it like this. And then the armpits are going to be a little tricky. I'm going to try to run through as much as I can right through here. So you'll see basically it's just going to go across the breast. So let's run these through, run those through right there. I got a really good way just to do it up and over right here, because I need a couple extra edge loops right there. All right, 1, and then I can do another one right here. There we go. I kind of want to fill this one right there. And then we'll add in a few extra faces. All right, I'm going to have a end gun. I need to figure out this end gun. So again, can't do a quad, but I have a good amount of real estate back here. So let's do 2 quads. That'll work. You guys remember what, sometimes forget this is actually sometimes y'all's first class that even touches Maya since Intro to 3D. You guys remember the terms quads, tries, and n-gons? Kinda. I mean, quad is how many faces or how many sides? 4. Tries are how many? What's an n-gon? Yeah. Are n-gons good? No, they don't pay their taxes, so we don't talk about them. We don't do N-gons. We don't even entertain them. So no N-gons. N-gons are not accepted. Which the nice thing with this tool is you can't make an N-gon with it. As far as I know, I don't think you can. That's not a challenge, by the way. Hey, guess what, Professor? You can make an N-gon. But it's nice though, because it basically will default either like quads or tries or a whole. So, you know, either you got those. Okay. All right. So now he's got a wetsuit with no legs. We're getting there. All right. Objects like the nose and the ears, since they protrude so far off the body, they really do need to have their own face loops at the bases. So like these right here, we'll do the same thing. Ears are going to get their own face loops. So just one right there. And then depending on the detail you put into the ear, how many ridges and stuff, I would actually do a face loop that follows those ridges. So for him, he's just got basically just one circle. But depending on, you know, if your guy has more ridges, then you're gonna need to throw in some more detail. And just kind of wrap this around. Any questions while I'm doing this, guys? So when I say this is like a game, I actually do mean it is kind of like a game, because you're trying to figure out the puzzle of how to give effective topology to this model. It's not, you know, it's if you like, you know, stuff where you're just kind of doing the same repetitive thing, is, I don't know, I kind of think it's a little bit relaxing. So I put in a purposeful try right here. So I kind of ran into a place where I needed the topology to split, but I should be able to turn this into a quad right there and then have it come through. And then you would basically just fill in this area. This needs to fit that silhouette a little bit better. This needs to be subdivided where it fits that silhouette. Smooth it every once in a while so it actually kind of wraps around better. You see, again, it's every time we add in a edge loop, it pops out to that shape. One of the reasons why I kind of isolate these pieces is because I can more freely add edge loops without them running over the entire body. I can make more conscious decisions of how that topology needs to actually flow. So it keeps me from kind of like screwing it up, screwing myself up in here. All right. Cavities like this and like the eye socket. Let me finish this eye socket. I'll start off with like a quad and then subdivide it to where I have a octagon. And then I'll just start kind of branching out from there. So for this guy, let's go ahead and put a loop directly on the eyelid itself. And I'm matching these points here. And this is just right on that edge. And then I would go ahead and take at least one of these faces and work your way out. And that's going to establish the concentric pattern that I'm going to be working with. Again, keeping myself from running into a spiral problem. Okay. You just keep going around. Another approach, kind of a similar thing, maybe runs a little bit faster for you. Again, same idea. Go back here, the same idea with the extraction, Control E, and then I'm going to scale it out. And again, since this thing is a live surface, it's going to essentially scale out onto that surface. So it'll stay glued to it. So if I go back to Mesh Tools, Quad Draw, you'll see that you can actually kind of extrude it out and then just keep extruding it as you need to. So like for something like this, kind of just keep working with it as you need. Maybe throw in a few extra edge loops, because again, we got a lot of edges that need to be kind of married over. That one, take that one, take that one. This. Extra edge right here. Put our two quads in here. And then throw in some extra edges in here, smooth it all out. You'll see it'll start looking a little bit nicer. And then we need to, again, basically go through and create some extra quads. So we'll do one here, do one here. Then we got this we need to deal with. We do our corner to corner. So let's do this little edge, corner, corner, corner. So something like that. This quad and then this quad. Perfect. And then we can connect this up with the head. And then once we start getting a little bit further, we can start connecting a lot of these pieces up with each other. And then at this point, we're kind of just looking at filling in the gaps. And so we're just kind of tracing out these gap areas that we need to fill in with faces. Come on. It's just getting more and more gimpy.
Oh my God, what is that?
It's just getting more into that. I don't. Okay, yeah, but you can see how it's kind of all like connecting together. And again, we're filling in these gaps after we're spending time on these more high value targets. And then since we, isolated these areas and worked on our topology, I don't have to worry about like accidentally throwing in an edge loop here that's going to run an edge loop straight into the eye, or run an extra edge loop in the mouth that's going to end up running edge loops in through the ear. So I'm trying to accomplish that hard work first before I start getting into some of the stuff that gets just more and more complicated. You see, like, again, just adding an edge loop here ends up running an edge loop throughout the entire body. But if you just take a second and say, hey, let's run, maybe we need to subdivide that neck or something there. Then by disconnecting it from the face, we can kind of, go back and rework it a little bit later. Because our goal is to come out with a low poly version of our mesh that we sculpted that's easier to animate inside of Maya. Okay. The back of the head, low value stuff that we don't see. Generally, you're going to have a lot lower face counts. So we'll say like the center of the head. You're just going to go, honestly, as not quite as low as you can, but you still need to support that shape. So his head is underneath the scalp mesh. So I'm not super concerned about it. I just wanted to kind of look like, again, the shape of the head. And then it's a good place to take a lot of these extra edge loops and kind of tie them off like inside the back of the head. So like these pieces here, take like this, and this, and they'll just like tie up over. Honestly, is go down here. And so they're just continuously just going up and over and up and over and up and over, just so we can get rid of them as effectively as possible. That kind of looks like a luchador. And that whole thing will just kind of evolve as it just goes back over the back of the head and then continue. And then that'll connect back down to the back of the neck. All right. The hands. Let's do the hands. Okay. Again, same as before, we're going to be doing complete face loops at the base of each one of these digits. And that's going to, again, inform our topology. So thumb, honestly, for me, is probably the most important digit on the hand itself. The fingers are all pretty easy. So I'm going to do what essentially amounts to a face loop that mimics this muscle right here. It's the one on your palm that just goes all the way around the base of the thumb. Let's reset our focus. Better. From there, let's see, we got, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. Okay. So I'll do 8 here on the tip. If you have difficulty moving these points, get closer to them and move your camera around. Sometimes there's an occlusion or something that causes that point to not work that well. Let's try extruding. So I'm going to go and take these edges, extrude out. I'm going to extrude out just a little bit. Then we'll just move it down. I'm going to be careful not to try to twist or anything as I'm moving. I'm just going to try to get them down to more or less the base. So that'll make things a little bit quicker for us. So you'll see right there. I can very easily throw in some extra edge loops. Let's do one right here. Do that one right there. A little extra edge right here, and we should be able just to very cleanly fill this in. And then relax it. All right. All right, that tip there needs just a little bit of help. You could run an edge loop in here That's gonna add extra faces and stuff you're gonna have to deal with all the way down there, which honestly, you may need, or you could take essentially those faces, 1, 2, 3, 4, extrude them. And extrude it in, which it just crashed, so. Sweet. You extrude it in and you can get a little bit better coverage of that thumb tip. Okay, well, I'm glad it happened now because I was pretty much done, so that's good. Thanks, Maya. Save, quit, save often.
Yeah.
Make sure you save.
Rule in my app.
Huh?
That's the number one rule in my app.
Yeah.
Every 5 minutes.
By the way, do you guys know where the autosave is? Did you guys know there is an autosave?
It's in my preferences.
Yeah, it's under settings, autosave,
Somewhere.
files, projects, autosave, file, projects, autosave. Enable, and you can change the interval. And it'll save it in whatever project you have it set to, or your default projects. All right. So I think that pretty much covers doing topology inside of ZBrush or inside of Maya. So next class, what we'll do is we'll talk about doing topology inside of ZBrush as well. So we'll do like clothes and some other objects and things like that in there. All right. Okay. Any questions or anything? We've got a few minutes left.
Random question?
Okay, I'll give you a random answer.
Okay, sorry. Every once in a while, when I'm working, my symmetry will like get out of alignment, and rather than using like cope with that and then offset, but that actually like moves whatever. Is there anything way around that?
I think teacup chihuahuas are not actually a real dog breed. I think they're just genetically modified
Oh my god.
to be too small.
Wait, chihuahuas are genetically modified.
Also,
I know. I'm just giving you a random answer. Okay, the local, yeah, I don't really do the offset thing. So I've noticed an issue, more of an issue, even with my thing, because it was like a little bit off center. That seems to be happening more. I'm not sure why, but it's when I started using more of the background grids, having those on, something on it's causing an offset on symmetry. I'm not sure why, because I don't usually use the grids that much when I'm sculpting. I'm doing it more since I'm teaching you guys, but I've noticed that's been causing some issues. So I'm curious if that's maybe what's going on with some of y'all and why it's kind of like getting off a little bit. But symmetry being off, I mean, you can always go under geometry. I think I've shown you this before, mirror and weld, just to get it back on symmetry. Because it could literally just be that like, maybe you're hitting X or something and it's just going off symmetry, then you turn it back on and it's just like, it's off a little bit. Again, you know, whenever you make something, make like a new subtool. Like make sure you turn symmetry on immediately. These tools here, the manipulator tool, the gizmos, actually kind of can get off symmetry relatively easily, depending on where you click them. So I think it's good to make sure you go in, if you're gonna like move any of these anywhere, like move these subtools anywhere, go in and unlock it recalibrate that gizmo tool to where it's like pointing perfectly up and down, straight, forward and back, left and right. Relock it and then recenter it. Because I've noticed that when I'm making subtools, sometimes like this will get a little off center. Then like when I move it forward or something, it like goes off skew a little bit, which can, again, it might look like it's centered, but it's not. Last thing is, if I'm having issues with symmetry, I will go in and turn on local symmetry. So like if an object is like purposefully moved off to the side, but I still need to work on symmetry, I can turn on local symmetry and it'll help keep it on. So like here, let's move this off purposely off to the side, and then I turn back on symmetry, and I have symmetry on this because I've turned on local symmetry under transform local symmetry. So you can turn that on, and that usually will help me. I don't usually change, like, you're doing the pivot point, right? Like you're doing set pivot.
Oh, no, I was actually going to, I think it's like, not markup, but it's offset, as well as actually offsetting the actual,
Where is that?
it's like under the information, and then I use offset.
Okay, I don't think I've done that. Let me see. Offset. Honestly, I don't think I've ever messed with this.
Oh,
The
no,
offset.
actually, like on the side, like the subtool surface, I was using information there. I saw it from like a ZBrush video that they like suggested.
Okay, so you're not doing it from here. Okay, you're doing it from. You're doing it under deformation. Oh, offset. I literally have my thing on it. Yeah, that just moves it. That's all it is. That's literally the same thing as like going to move and just moving it back. That's all it is. So let me try this. Turn off local symmetry. For a lot of you guys that have had this issue, like say, for example, it's just like barely offset. I will take your tool, your subtool, and like try to center it as much as possible. So like it's gonna definitely be like offset a little bit here. And then do the mirror and weld and just see if that kind of like fixes it. Just try to very subtly go in and fix it that way. You'll see you'll get that little line down the middle. A little extra bit right here, but it should fix it. It will definitely fix the symmetry and make it centered if you don't have local symmetry turned on. So I've had it before where like I'll go in and do like a mirror and weld with local symmetry turned on, and it doesn't really fix it the way you think it would. So we'll see, we'll turn that on. And it doesn't do anything. That's because it's looking at the local symmetry. And it's mirror and welding based off of that, not based off the actual center of the world. So here, if I do mirror and weld, you'll see it just ends up making two. Where in reality, you really want it to like do that. So that would be my approach. I'm going through and trying to work with that.
So one more question.
Okay.
So the style that my question shows,
Yeah.
the breasts are like sharp. So more like,
The breasts are sharp,
yes.
like Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, PS1 sharp.
Yes, exactly like that.
Well,
Do I like put her breast to a point?
yeah.
Okay.
Make them sharp. What's up? Yeah. Oh, give me a second. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, guys, make sure we got 3 minutes left, so make sure you get those papers filled out for me, please, and then turn them in. We'll come up here and get one. It's right here. If you don't have one, please come up here and grab one. And then I will see you guys on Wednesday. I got a drawing, sweet. If you don't have a question, I will take a drawing, a joke, or a limerick. I hope you can give me a limerick, because I don't know what limericks are. What's up?
Would you mind checking, seeing if I'm like ready for me? Okay, I'm gonna put email it to you. If that's easier.
I'm just gonna walk over there.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like it's probably just a 30-second look.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think you're right. I'll split them out just a little bit, so you get better access inside of there. Just very gently. Well, you know, all the leads and everything, I would split the left lips just a little bit. Yeah. Okay, would you? Oh, by the way, guys, for the check-in today, since I do have that turn-in folder, just by Wednesday, drop an image in of your stall as it is today.
So like, I have like the lens part separated. There I want like this little part to be a part of the meeting.
I guess it would depend on the style. I mean, the rest of it is plastic, like iron art, it's just one piece. Long. Grab that paper.
Also goes into the iron, I actually do put it in like natural. This one. Yeah, everything is like small.
The curve toothbrush is this way.
I should have done it last night, but I'm lazy.
Insert. It's actually really simple. I mean, that way just have it like. Frank thing is.
Oh, it's literally across the room. Unless people-